Good evening, everybody, and welcome to the Tracking Zoom series. My name is Michael Cox. I think most of you know me, but um, I'm not a master tracker by any means. I'm an enthusiastic amateur, but I put these videos together to try to help people get ready for the evaluations that are coming up in October. They can also be useful if you just kind of want to get a general idea of what the tracking situation is in Albuquerque, down on the river and up in the mountains. Now tonight we're gonna have it might even be a little bit shorter. This is an evaluation basics video to basically get you up to speed on how evaluations work, what happens, the rules, the etiquette, and then maybe some tips on how to prepare for them. So if you haven't done one before, this would be invaluable. But if you have, it can still be useful because of the kind of specific information that we have about the evaluations and how they've been done in the past in Albuquerque and in the Bosque. So this will be recorded so everybody can watch it if they want. Um, Also, if I make any mistakes, you catch me making any mistakes, please let me know. I'd love, or just not clarifying things, let me know. I'd rather get them right than to put it out wrong. And I need to thank my Zoom master, Sharon, who is also my webmaster. And as virtually everything you're going to see tonight that I reference will be on the website, which now there's a link at the bottom of every email I send out. So the one that had the Zoom at the bottom, you could link on and find the website.
Yeah, that's great.
Okay. All right. So track and sign the basics. This is the heart of it. For 2 days, this is what we'll be doing, looking at tracks in circles or maybe a sign with a flag near it. But for 2 days, you're going to peer, squat, analyze, and think about it. And this is what you'll be seeing. It'll be some sort of tracker sign in a circle with a little marker that asks you a question that you have to answer. So this one is who, and it's pointing at a horse track, although it also has the toes of a dog inside there. But this is basically it. You do this over and over, answer the questions the best you can, and at the end they tell you how you did. This is the fellow who's going to be running it, Casey McFarland. Casey is one of the best trackers in the world. I think one of the best teachers for sure. He's a head of Tracker Certification, which is a leading organization that handles this sort of thing in North America. And the only reason we get to see him, given his prominence and his international work, is that his parents live here. So he comes to visit a couple times a year and graces us with the opportunity. He's also the author of some of the best books, the key books that people use: Mammal Track and Sign, Bird Nest, Feathers. He has his own nature watching series, which is absolutely wonderful. All of these things are on the website. So if you see it here, you're interested, go find the website and there will be a link to how to find it. And he will be helped or assisted by Ann Hunkins from Santa Fe, who is a tremendous tracker, also a good teacher. She now teaches for the Southwest Online Tracking group out of San Diego. And Kevin O'Malley, now he's the organizer. He comes from the South Sound, that's right, Nature School in Seattle. And he's here because there has to be some kind of organization sponsoring these. And so he's taken this on, even though it's really not even close to his home, but he kind of likes to come out here. So he should be here as well. And he runs the program and he does a lot of teaching. He's really good at this. All right, so the basics, no more than 10 participants, often less if we don't have enough, $350 more or less. There's 2 days, 50 to 55 questions. Now, the first 3 questions are warm-up, which means they don't count. So you can get them wrong and it doesn't make any difference. The remaining questions are split up about 1/3 simple, 1/3 complex, and 1/3 very complex. And then there's a couple of extremely complex bonus questions. If you miss those, it doesn't make any difference. If you get them, they can potentially help you. Now, the first day focuses on tracks generally. The second day focuses on sign. At the end, they score all your answers in this very complicated scoring system. But basically, it comes down to you can see the levels here. Level 1 is 70 to 79%, 2 is 80 to 89, 3 is 90 to 99, and professional means you got all 100 of them right. Now, once you've done all of these, if you successfully get 100% on the professional, then you can go to a specialist evaluation where it's 100%. It's the same format, but all of the questions are extremely complicated, or very complex rather. So only about 1% of the trackers that do this ever accomplish that. And Ann Hunkins is one of those, which is why she's such a good person to have for this. Now, there are some rules, and they're pretty simple. First, you cannot use any kind of measuring device. You can't have a ruler or anything like that. So some people use their fingers, like, oh, that's about this long or whatever, to try to help figure it out. But you can't use any help, any guides, any field guides of any kind when you're trying to answer the questions. After a round of questions, there's usually a break while they go and find new questions. Then you can look at your field guides if you have them with you. And oh, Peter, hi, Peter. Finally, nothing is timed. You can take all the time you want to look at a question. And believe me, some people take a great deal of time. Usually they're the ones who do better. But you can go back, you can look at it and think about it, go back and look at it, take all the time you need. They really, really let you enjoy your time with this process, and it takes some of the stress out of it. There are some etiquettes. One is do not touch anything in the circle with your finger or with anything else. So it's kind of a sacred space in there almost. Don't step over the tracks. And sometimes that's tempting. I've definitely done that because you can disturb things in there inadvertently. And no talking. Once you get your set of questions, usually 4 or 5, they show you what they are. You start working, no talking amongst you because it's usually a small group of people doing it. When you're done, you will discuss them all. And that's how kind of it works. After a set of questions, everybody answers, they write down the answers. Then you go back through them as a group with the teachers and everyone else kind of commenting. And that is frankly the most valuable part of this process. That's where I find I learn the most. Let's see. And now it doesn't. Oh, there we go. Okay. I would say have a plan. If you haven't done this before, most people end up with one. This is mine. I put this in the front of all my tracking notebooks for a while. It's just a way to kind of make sure you do everything you can. And also I find it a real stress reduction device. If I have a sequence of things I know and do over and over, then when I get to a hard one, I just can kind of fall back and do my thing as I go. So this one's pretty simple and not that different from others, I think. They often draw tracks. I'm not a good artist, doesn't make any difference, but drawing makes me really focus on the track and see everything. And it doesn't take as long as you think. It's really not that hard. I note other tracks in the area. I look for other signs anywhere around. I'm expanding my interest outside the circle. And I look at the ground, actually outside the circle, of course. I touch the ground actually, because I want to see how hard it is and how much pressure and so forth it would take to make something happen like that. And I want to know where I am too. If I'm next to the river, I'm looking at one group. If I'm in the middle of the desert, I'm at another, or other places. And I always walk all the way around and look at it from different angles. And this is one of the best tips of all. We did an evaluation in, I think it was Seattle. There was a beaver track, a perfect front beaver track, which was invisible from one direction and completely visible 180 degrees the other side. It just appeared. So I always walk around and look. I get really close, I back up, and I look at different angles because the shadows help, and that helps give you that. Then I will ask real kind of basic stuff. How big is it? What's the shape? Number of toes? I'm writing all these down. Are there claws showing? If so, how big are they? Are there fur? How many pads? What arrangement? And look at stride and straddle. We'll talk about that a little more later. Look at the gait if there's enough tracks for me to do that. And then I put down slow down and walk away. I put that in there because I find at the end of this process, I often am stumped and start stressing out. So I've gone through all that stuff and I still don't have an answer. So, and I got this from somebody who does this a lot more than I do. So I walk away, go look at another one, and then come back when I'm ready. That seems to help me settle down. Then I'm going to pick my best 3 options. What do I think it could be? And then I'm going to go through and find evidence for and against every option, pick the one that's best. And I try to get 3 pieces of evidence. Doesn't always happen, but that's what I'm shooting for. So that at least I have some feeling, okay, I got it. I got close. I may not get it right, but at least I'm in the ballpark. Now, Anne, this is her approach. She did this on video one time. She also draws the tracks. The second one here, I think, is the best of all. Be curious, not desperate. Be really fascinated by the track and don't let it scare you because there's a certain amount of intimidation. And she goes with gut feeling, and I believe I believe in that now too, because a lot of times, first time I look at it, I'm probably right, and a lot of times I talk myself out of it. And look at the whole scene like I do. What's my mood? She's interested in how you're feeling. Are you sharp? Are you tired? Especially at the end of the day. be here now. Just gotta focus on what you're doing. And what do I want this to be? That's a good one. If you have tracks you really like, it's easy to think that's that one. That's a bobcat. I wanted to see a bobcat today. If you have that feeling, make sure you kind of think about that for a second. Maybe it's not. And what am I not seeing here? That is probably the best on the whole list. Um, Kind of go back and through because it's not uncommon. You look at a track, you think you know it, you go back and everybody gets together in a group. In case he points down, he says right there, and it's like it wasn't there before, and it appeared when he showed it to you, but it was always there. So trying to find those. And don't waste energy spinning wheels. Don't spend a lot of time on the ones you can't do. You only have so much energy. It's 2 days, it's long. Do what you can and move on. And I think that's good advice too. You can absolutely obsess over a track for way too long. All right, so this is some stuff I think might help you, and these are all on the website. You can't take this kind of chart with you, but if you look at it, it gives you a pretty good idea. You count toes, get a good idea. 4 is canines and felines and a lot of birds. 4 in the front, 5 in the back. You're looking at mostly, rodents and some other large like porcupines and so forth.
Mike, I'm sorry.
Yeah,
you might want to mention that this is on the website under documents.
Yeah. This is on the website. In fact, this one you can find under documents. If you go to the website, resources, documents, it's right there. You can find it along with a few others we'll talk about. And this one, I created this, so it's pretty much our home here. I didn't put on animals or birds that you won't be seeing. It's not that hard to kind of memorize this, especially if you take it along with you for the next month or so when you track and just say, okay, what the answer is. Pretty soon you figure it out. These are absolutely wonderful. These are done by Kim Cabrera. They help you figure out some of the key things that happen in evaluation. Every single evaluation I've had to figure out, is it a cat or a dog? It just comes up. And this is the most wonderful example of taking all the different things that help differentiating and putting them on one page. And once again, you can't take it to the eval, but boy, if you take this and learn it, you will know the difference and you will be able to figure it out 99% of the time.
And this is also on the website.
It's on the website. I'm starting to hear a voice about, Sherry made the website. She does all the work. So this is on the website. You can go and print it up, take it with you, whatever you want to do. And it's also at the very bottom, you see down here, it's beartracker.com. I don't know if you can see that crummy little arrow, but if you go there, she has videos that also for everything imaginable. She's got one on, is it a dog or a cat? Well, look at that next. A dog or a coyote or a mountain lion. You watch that, you will know the difference. She's just excellent at this. Here's another one, coyote and dog. Every evaluation on the river, this is going to come up. It's because there's so many dogs and there are coyotes. And this gives you everything, how to go through it, how to analyze it. I would print this off and try to learn it. Maybe go down and look at some dog tracks, coyote if you can find it. And this is on the website, of course. This really works. If you know these factors, almost all the time you're going to get this one right. Yeah, okay. Now, we looked at tracks, kind of focused on that, but that's just the beginning. They don't just do tracks, they do a whole lot of other stuff. So I'm going to go through. This is a real quick survey of things in these categories that show up pretty regularly. I think you can kind of expect to see them that are not tracks. Now, the first is scat. I'd say, boy, you got to know that. So in the mountains, black bear, you can usually find that. Coyote, pretty much everywhere. Mule deer, that's a pretty common question. It's a simple question, but it's everywhere, and they like to ask it. Bobcat, if they find it, they'll ask, my experience. Now, the bat, in the river, you can always find bat scat. It's under the bridges. If they want to do this question, it's there, and won't go into detail about how to figure out what it is, but if you hang on to the video, the next one or the one after that, the next one is mammals in the bosque. We'll go into detail about how to figure that one out. Then lizard, which has this little uric acid thing on the end. And then I can't really see, let's see. Oh, there we go. And then a male turkey, which has this little J. That's going to be, that one I think they will be able to find in the mountains because they have the last couple times. Now, dens and burrows, lots of options. I don't have all of them here, but this is a giant beaver burrow. It's huge. The water is gone from this spot. but they're everywhere in the bosque. So I would expect us to see that in one form or another. Once again, we'll go into a lot more detail when we talk about mammals on the bosque. And a coyote, this one is a lot rare, but they can be found. They're very tall and narrow. And then if we can find good desert, which is harder to find now, they've fenced off a lot of it in the Albuquerque area. Kangaroo rat track or dent, and those are pretty easy if you're in the right place. Now, foraging sign, I expect to see these, and they may not ask the beaver because that's pretty easy, but they always ask porcupine. I think up in the mountains in the ponderosa pine, there's Abert squirrel stuff. It's always there. It's a good question. They ask it a lot. Black bear, this is overturned rock, pretty easy to find that up there, especially since we'll be there in the late fall. The bears are active, so there's going to be all kinds of bear sign up there for them to pick. And then woodpecker, I think we all know what that looks like. And then I included Boda pocket gopher because even this is a burrow, but it's not a home. This is how they eat. They burrow their way along and eat. So that you will see many of these because it's not where they live, it's where they work, and they work all day. All right. So nest, I am not good at nests. I find this to be very difficult, but there's some that they can show you. I think a lot of them are so hard they'll never put them into an evaluation, but some are good. The white-winged dove right there, that seems to be pretty common. There are so many of them now in everywhere. They're in the bosque, they're in the mountains, they're everywhere. And I forget, sure, what is the term that we use for that? Hello? Yeah. Maybe
Okay,
she's getting,
so if
yeah.
A nest with a nest built without love, it's a dove.
Okay. Yeah, it looks like a pile of sticks. It doesn't have anything to cushion it. It's not, like woven together or anything. It's really weird. Now, below that is a cactus wren. I think that's a cactus wren. I'm pretty sure, but that's a nest we haven't seen. But now that they kind of went into the foothills on this last eval, and they're there. I mean, they're beautiful and they're easy to find if you look. So I wouldn't be surprised to see that pop up. Hummingbird, if they find it, they'll certainly use that. And down here in the bottom right corner, cliff swallow. Every eval I've ever done in the bosque, we went in, we looked at that because they're everywhere and they're really cool. And Casey really likes to talk about the cliff swallow and how they build them, where they go during the winter and so forth. So I would expect to see cliff swallows. Feathers, I think are a lot like nests. There's a lot of feathers that are really hard to identify. Even with the book and websites, I strike out a lot of times because there's just a lot of feathers that look alike. But there's some that we can identify, even if we're not experts. Roadrunner, and they're around. Canada goose, the bosque's full of them. Not hard to find. Very unique looking things. We'll talk about why. So that I expect to be on most evals in the bosque. And then the red flicker, which lives everywhere and drops feathers like crazy. There is no other feather that doesn't look like that, or that looks like that. And then wild turkey. You can't miss out if you want to do a wild turkey feather in the mountains right now, especially if there's any water nearby. So those are the kind of things I would look at and try to look at, and maybe like blue jay feathers, any kind of bluebird feather, because those you might be able to identify. But a small brown feather, I have a hard time. I think there's a good chance of seeing a raven or a crow feather, though. And we'll talk about that when we get to the bosque part. I think that's next week or the week after. Now, bones, they seem to find a lot of bones, and sometimes I think maybe they bring them with them. I don't know. But anyway, so they show up like this beaver was in the bosque eval I did. I missed it. This coyote was in one I did in San Francisco or in San Diego, and this bobcat we found just wandering around. But they're really good, especially Kevin O'Malley. He finds bones like crazy, and so you might want to look at some of the more common animals and birds, see what their bones or skulls look like, because he's just a master at finding them. I fully expect to see both mule and black bear beds in the evaluation up in the mountains. The bear beds are not as easy to find, but if you know where to look, you can find them. And the mule deer are everywhere. It's impossible to strike out. If they want to find a mule deer bed, they'll show it to you. And we'll talk when we get to that section about how to identify them. But you can see they're kind of big, and there's usually in the mule deer bed, there's usually mule deer scat around. There's usually mule deer fur inside. Same with the black bear. They're big. They're usually kind of dug down, and they have a tendency to poop right next to them. So those are the two beds that I think they might also do like a um, rabbit bed, but boy, those are hard to find. I haven't had much luck with them. All right, rug scrapes. They love these. This mule deer on the far left, that's a mule rubbing off its antlers, velvet on its antlers. They're all over the mountain. They can be found without much, so I expect to see that. Um, and I think Sherry saw one, maybe even an elk. They were thinking. I don't know. Bobcat scrape. This one's from San Diego, but these are pretty common if you look around. They make a little scrape and then they do their deposit. And then finally, this beaver pile here. This is a scent pile. They are everywhere along the river, the Rio Grande River. They can absolutely be found, and you can be asked about that. And there's another kind of more subtle version of that we'll talk about when we do the bosque portion. And I think that's next week. Oh, might find kill site. Sometimes you do. They're not too bad if you have enough. I mean, this one over here is pretty clearly a raven. This one is absolutely clearly a wild turkey, and especially up in the mountains, there's a whole lot of wild turkey. And what I don't have a picture of, which is even more common probably, is a white-winged dove kill site because they are everywhere these days. Now, the hard part. So, gates. They will ask a couple of questions, maybe more than two, but at least two in every one I've done. And these are hard. I don't pretend to really be great at them. I've found them to be the most challenging of all of the areas, I guess, of tracking. I struggled with this for a long time, but I'm going to try to get through it, and I'll give you some videos, which I have found to be the best way to learn this because it's just hard to learn about a movement from a book. So it's good to learn and read what's in the field guides, but I find the videos more useful. And if here, Peter, I would appreciate it if I get any of this wrong because I'm really I'm working from a less than perfect knowledge. So there's basically two kinds of patterns. One is an unbroken pattern, and that's a walk, a trot, and this weird thing raccoons do. And the best way I've heard it described is if you could hear the animal walking, it would be dot 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 dot. No break in the pattern, continuous. So that's a walk, and a walk is exactly what you think. And it's the front goes down, the hind comes next. If the hind's in front of it, below it, like here, that's an understep. On top is a direct register, and front is overstep. That's it. But they usually just in my experience, it's mostly walk. That's what they want the answer. Can you identify a walk? Now the second one, and this one comes up too, is a trot. And a trot is just a fast walk. So you get the same pattern with a longer stride. This one doesn't do a great job of showing that, and a much narrower straddle, and that's the distance from here to here between. You drew a line down these, it would be that distance. Over here, as you can see, the fronts are off that line. Over here, they're almost on it. As speed increases, the straddle decreases. And you can actually figure that out if you stand at the end and hold something up like a pencil. You'll be able to see, okay, does this look like a trot? And there's more energy, so that the tracks maybe have a little kickback, maybe a little pushed out in front. Walk is gentle, and it leaves gentle tracks. And finally, the raccoon. We'll go into more detail. They have this weird 2x2 walk, and there are always lots and lots of raccoon tracks. So they like to use them for a lot of things. And boy, it'd be nice to get this question because it's one of the easier gates to identify. But the raccoon is unique, unlike most animals, where like the alternative diagonal legs go forward at the same time, like your front left and your rear hind go together, and then the other two. In raccoons, the legs on the same side go together at the same time and swing forward. And then the opposite side goes. So you get this really bizarre side by side hind, front, hind, front, hind, front. Nothing else looks like that. If you get that gate as a question, that would be wonderful, but I haven't seen them ask it. But I
I
think you're
have
going to
a
need to.
I have a question about the trot. Oh,
Okay.
on the trot, is that an overstep?
It can be either. Um, you could, it can, well, let's hold on there a second. Unfortunately, my phone is right next to me. Okay. So, your question, help here if you could, Peter. It can be either, like you could have a direct register trot where the hind lands right on the front. You could have an overstep. Understep is a little tougher because you're speeding up, but you could have those other combinations. So yeah, it would generally be either direct or overstep, I'd say. Does that answer that, sure?
Yeah.
Okay. Now, groups of four, this is the broken pattern. So if you were to listen, these creatures woven along, you'd hear 1, 2, 3, 4, pause. 1, 2, 3, 4, pause. So what they're doing is groups of four. Like here's one group, or I'm sorry, here's one group of four. Front always starts, then the front and hind are kind of here, and they can be side by side or up above. They're always kind of like here, and then a hind, and that's the group of four. Then there's a gap, and it's usually pretty sizable. It's hard to miss. Same pattern repeats. Gap, same pattern repeats. So this is going to be a little faster. It may not be real fast, like skunks love to lope, and they're not moving that fast. But it's just this kind of group of four with a gap, and these are together. Now, when they get going fast, then you get the gallop. And this is as quick as an animal can move, and it's front, hind, and they basically launch themselves into the air. Big gap usually. Two fronts come down, the two hinds come down, and the hinds launch them into the next one. So this one is going to be fast, and there's going to be a lot of gap usually here. And this it's a lot harder to find the gallop down there in the bosque, and it's usually a dog, frankly. And the key here is if you can figure out um, the front and the hinds, because the fronts are always bigger, then you get this pattern front, and then the hinds are out here. That's a gallop, and plus it's just high energy, man. There's mud or sand or whatever flying out from these tracks because they're just moving fast. Now these are a little easier. The T-bound or Y-bound, somebody people call it, the rabbit, front, hind. They can gallop and they can do it, but I've 90% of the time I see rabbit tracks, they look just like this. Front, hind, little gap. Maybe if they're moving slow, there might not even be a gap. And then another front, hind. Squirrels, pretty similar, except the fronts are together and often not that far behind the hind. So you get front, hind, usually a pretty good gap, and then that. And then the frog hop is kind of
That's
unique.
a
Pardon me?
that's a tree squirrel there.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then the ground squirrel, their fronts are not together.
Yeah, they might be like here, maybe, Peter, like one there and one there,
Yeah, they're offset. Yeah.
offset a little bit. Yeah,
Uh-huh. Yeah,
but they
but if
but they
they're
still won't be
together like
this.
that, that's the
Yeah,
tree squirrel.
they won't be they won't be on a line like that. But they like this one might be back here.
Right.
Now, yeah, that would be like a rock squirrel.
Right.
Yeah, thanks. I need to get another little picture for that. Then the frog hop. The frog, let's imagine it's just sitting here, hind, front. It launches its body, goes a long way, and lands in exactly the same way it was sitting before. Hind, front. Um, the hinds are big and they may actually curl around a little bit, but they're pretty much locked into this. I don't think a frog can do anything else. Now they say toads walk, but almost all the time I see this exact same pattern with toads. Have you noticed anything different, Peter?
No, I I haven't. And I'm not that familiar with frog and toad
Well,
tracks.
they're all over the bosque, and I've seen, uh, there some days there's just covered toad tracks, and they're all hopping. If they say they can walk, I guess it's possible, but the ones I see never do. They just like a frog, except much slower or much less distance between the hop spots. All right, so that's really quick. I mean, I tried to go through this. That's way too quick. There's a lot of nuance and it takes time. So I would suggest, this is what I've done, is it's going to look at some videos. This is a wonderful video. This guy Leckman, he put this together. The way it works, he's got a bunch of circles with front and hind, and he lays out the pattern on the ground so you can see it, and then he himself reenacts it, and he does them all, and he does them all really well. So you get to see the pattern on the ground, but then you get to see exactly how it works, and he can make it work for him so that you can get a good view. I found this invaluable, and this is on the website under resources online videos. You just click on that and watch it as many times as you want. So I found that helpful. And then I recently found these. These are wonderful. They're by this fellow, Rene Natua, I think his name, probably mispronouncing it. He's from the Netherlands. He's a tremendous tracker, and he's kind of the Western Europe version of Casey. He's really run things. And I actually met him. He did an evaluation here years ago. When he was learning, qualifying to be an evaluator under the tracker system. He did one with Casey. Well, he also has an online teaching course you can take, which has live video or live Zooms and all kinds of great things to do and exercises. And as part of that, he put them online, and they're free. Each one is very short. He's got an animal, usually his dog, who does whatever it is you're looking at. So, for example, up here, this is gallop. He watches the gallop, and then the track. He'll show you the track. So here's a dog running. Here's what that track looks like. They're very short, but I think they're the best example of kind of marrying what the animal's doing to what it looks like on the ground. And so he's got these 4. All are available on the website. You can go and watch them. They're really short. Like you can see, they're 2 minutes or so, but they really work. Okay. This is another option if you want to spend a little money. Dan Gardecky, he is a tremendous teacher. I think he's in New York, maybe. He's got his own website, Lead with Nature, and he mostly does he does a lot of tracking. He's really into birds and bird language too. But him and this Bill Marple guy, they do a series for people who are trying to get ready for a evaluation, pretty much. Each one you can buy them individually or as a group, and there's preparing for tracking, evaluation, etc. But these 2 middle ones, animal gait and track patterns, part 1 and 2, those are the best examples of really a really good teacher explaining these and explaining how it comes up in evaluations. And he's the guy that helped me put the pieces together more than anything I've seen. So even though they're $20 each, you pay for them, you can watch them as many times as you want. And I've watched these 2 a couple of times because they really, when I'm done watching these, I feel like I can get it. It kind of fades over a while, but once I've watched both of them, I feel pretty good about it. And the website for that's in the also on the website. If you go to resources under websites, you'll find under Lead with Nature, that's his website. And of course, guidebooks are good. There's many of them. I have way too many, I think, but there's some excellent ones that are really good. This one up here, this bird tracks right here, that's invaluable. It's really it doesn't have all the bird tracks, but it does a wonderful job of what it does. And there's a new version of this, Local Tracks in North America, which is on the website. Everything that you see here is on the website. So what you can do is go, and there's both a description of it and then a link to where you can find it to buy it if you want it. All right, so where will we likely go? This is guesswork based on past experiences. Rio Grande Bosque is wonderful. It's hard to imagine not using it because it has more tracks than anywhere else around. Between the sand under bridges, sand bars, and mud flats, it's just unparalleled. So in the past, we've gone under the Montano Bridge, Alameda Bridge, and Paseo del Norte Bridge. The bridges are good because they're basically a funnel for wildlife moving along the river. They have to go under there, and they preserve tracks. Some tracks I've seen a single beaver track survive under the Montano Bridge for a year and still be identifiable. The mountains are a little tougher. Then they're looking for sign more than track. Ojito's a possibility. We've gone there. Tree Springs, Three Gun Springs, which is more kind of almost foothilly, and the Sandia Mountain Natural History Center, which is up in the mountains. And that's a possibility. We went there last year. We may do that again. What will they ask? I've collected the questions that I could from the evaluations that I had access to. There's many more going, especially before 2016. So these are all Casey McFarland evaluation questions on the Rio Grande from 2016 through 2024, and then the mountain evaluation questions, same time period. Can't promise her it's 100%, but I think it's pretty close. These are also in documents on the website. If you go there, you can see them, and I'll show you what they look like. There's the bossy questions, a lot of questions, but at least it gives you an idea what to look at, focus on. If you look through here and say, I don't know that, well, you can go find it. This is a pretty good list. I think this one's pretty close, up to date and accurate, and that's on the website. And when we go through the Bosque, we'll go into a lot more of these in detail as well. Mountain evaluations, there's just not as much up there. There's not a lot of tracks because of the ground, so they look at sign. And it's deer, turkey, and bear. That's the guys who really put it out for you up there. So if you know your deer, turkey, and bear, you're in pretty good shape. The others are rarer. Red squirrel, if we go there, Abert squirrel, they're in different places, but expect one or both of those to show up. And that's it. This is me getting my level 3. I was very happy to do that. So that's the end of that presentation. But I want to mention, so next week, same time, same place, 9:25, 7 to 8 p.m. We'll do the Rio Grande Bosque track and sign. We'll focus on mammals and get into a lot more detail on a lot of this stuff that we just barely touched on tonight. All right. So any questions, clarifications, anything?
Yes, I have a couple of questions.
Okay.
If there is scat to be looked at, have they like opened it up so you can see what's inside it
Nope.
better? So you can't do
and
that.
They don't do that, and you can't do it. And my habit is to do it, and I have to really restrain myself. So you don't get to touch it.
Okay. And can you use a magnifying glass?
Absolutely. And a lot of people have a magnifying glass. In fact, I may have skipped a slide here about what to bring. I didn't see it show up. Oh, you know what? I've had problems with it. So what you have to bring, I'll go through it now, even though I don't have a slide. What you have to bring is a notebook and a pencil. Those are essentials. What you should bring is a flashlight for sure. For under the bridge, it can get dark, and a flashlight will help you look at things. They're invaluable. Magnifying glass is useful. A lot of people really use a lot of magnifying glass time, get really close, and that's fine. You get as close as you want as long as you don't touch it. And it's also good to bring your field guides, the ones you like, because in between sessions and at lunch, you can go through them. So, you see something in the morning and you're worried about it. When they take a break and you're no longer like actively answering questions, you can go look at all of them that you want. And I always take a camera and a scale, a little ruler, because then I can take pictures of the things, and especially the ones I miss. I want that picture so I can look at it later. All right, does that help?
Yes.
Any other questions? No, but we may get done early then.
And
all right.
I'm going to ask one more quick
Hi,
question.
Peter.
Hi.
Take your time. We're actually done 15 minutes early, so don't worry about questions.
Well, assuming that you're a little stumped, or even if you're not stumped, you could take a picture of it, walk away while you're thinking about it, and come back. But you can look at the picture, or no?
Well, that's a good. Actually, you shouldn't take the picture until everyone's done and given their answers. And so the way it works is everyone looks at it, they give an answer quietly or silently to the person who scores it. When everyone's done it, then you go do your big discussion, right? Where everyone stands around and talks about it. And when that's done, that's when you can take your picture. There's actually usually 2 or 3 people kind of jostling around trying to get their photographs at that point. So you can't use a photo to help you figure out what it is, but you can use it to look at later to figure out what it was that you missed. And any other questions? All right. Anybody want to add anything?
Well, thank you for doing this, Michael. It's really great. I don't think I'm going to be on this eval, but it is nice to see what you're doing, and hopefully, you know, if I can help at all during these, I will. But yeah.
Yeah,
So,
I'd love to have you.
thank
It's good to have somebody who knows more than I do watching these. All right, well, we're done early. So next week, I expect it will run the full time because there's a lot more content next week. So this will be available on the website as a recording. If anybody wants to see it, if they have any questions, everything that we talked about, all the materials and so forth, are there as well. If you can't find something, let me know, because there's a lot of stuff there. But it should be pretty obvious.
Thank you for doing that. Thank you, Sharon, for doing the website, putting that
Oh, yeah.
together. It's a great resource. Thank you.
Yeah,
There's
thank
a
you,
lot of
Sharon.
stuff on that website. There's a
It is a
lot
lot of stuff. Yes, it's fully loaded now.
Yeah.
Cool.
Well, we all appreciate it. Thank you very
Yeah.
much.
And I should mention, if it's
Thank
on the
you.
website, that means I recommend it. There's a million things I didn't put on there, but if it's on there, I think it's worth having or looking at or reading or whatever. All right. Well, in that case, I think we are done.
All right,
Well,
thank
thanks,
you.
guys.
Good night, everybody. Thanks
Good
for coming.
night.
Good
Good
night.
night.
Good night.